All right, so I'm studying a little James Taylor. I've got, you know, it's basically kind of some modal arrangement. It's a melody based on, I'm going to use the C chord to interpret it, but it's like, it's based in F major. So I've got the capo on the third fret. So, F being, you know, here, and then, this would be the open third at the capo. So that's my one. Alternatively, it could be now the root of my C, and then so the C chord is now an F chord, but I'll still refer to it as a C because it's a standard C shape without a capo. So F here, C. Anyway, so yeah, so he always starts. He doesn't usually start on tonic when he sings. So the vocal melody is tell me, 3/5. Tell me how. Tell me how. Tell me how. So it's basically gonna be 3/5 2, which is another open here. It's pulling off the 3. So you got C, E, G. G is another open note, and then back to C again. If we're going to use the C chord as an example, and then E again. So it's an easy chord to work with. And then if we were going to do a solo, like a pentatonic solo, based on the scale in this region. Let's see what it would be. So it's back to tonic. So it starts with the 3. You can play the game. You can play the game. You can play the game. You can act out the part, though you know it wasn't. Anyway, it's not quite right. It's he's got a nice. I'm gonna have to listen to it again for the exact melody, but it's gonna be all around this chord. I should be able to get it pretty soon, but generally, if I memorize the melody through the playing and then singing along with the playing, it'll help me memorize it, and I can get my intervals right. And it'll probably overall help It'll help the cleanliness of the detail and cleanliness of my vocal performance. I think in general, because clean intervals make for a good singing, right? So anyway, I got to refine my ear a little bit because I couldn't hear exactly between the 2 and the 1 notes, like in my memory, But when I listen to the song again, I'll be able to pick that up. So what he's doing here, we got your thumb and thumb in middle. So he's ascending, just one step. So he starts within this would be a G. So because it's a capo, but this is open, so it's going to be like the one, it's the E string and G string capo, so it's, and then, we're going to go up a full step, and then basically, you throw the index in and play your D string, which is your F. So you sprinkle in the root with your index whenever, just as an aside. It's like a flourish. It provides foundation, but it's almost subliminal. So ascend. So you're ascending on the bass, on the root, more or less the root note is going to be ascending yet another half step, and then instead of playing this ascending, like a full step on both notes in the same way, you reach over to the B string, if you will, and so this would be a C sharp, and you're, instead of doing the thumb and middle, you're doing the thumb and ring. So and then you have this thing that's like, it's, I think, the sheet music just says it's an A major chord, but the reality is that he doesn't have the fifth, included in that, so it's more like this, clearly, because he's still using that F root, so it's not going to cover that up. It's not going to raise that F to a G to make that, how we normally be playing like an A chord. So, I mean, yeah, like, well, it's RF, but usually, it's RF, but like usually to play an A chord, you've got A, and then you've got E, right? So in this, like usually an A chord would take this shape. I don't know exactly what this is without having the fifth, which is the dominant interval. So it switches, instead of having the dominant interval, we're maintaining the F. So we don't have the fifth, but we have, I guess it might be the fourth. So this could be a fourth, a suspended fourth, we'll say. And the rest is like a major. So anyway, so you go kind of. That's not true, actually. I'm sorry. That's what I just did, but it makes sense to me because it comes, the later parts do that a lot. And also a lot of the other, Fire and Rain does that kind of, playing the major third, like pulling off, so and then resolving it back to a major. So, but that's not what he does here. I'm sorry. So, not right. It's something similar to that. Because it goes like, you can. So coming off this, I guess this would be like the tonic for the A chord, an octave up. You can, and then the tonic for the A chord versus the tonic of the scale, the F. You can. And that's when he starts singing, and I'm kind of off. It's like hard to juggle, but so that's why muscle memory is going to make it work a little easier. But so practice makes perfect, one of those things. to do this. Like people aren't probably going to be too upset if I just threw that in there, because it would be like, the music calls for an A major, but it shouldn't be like that pronounced. Like I'm really letting this major third ring out, and he doesn't do that. It's like stepping back. It's more important to do the you can. So returning to the index finger and the root. So. That's honestly what he does. You can. So. You can. If I get it up to speed. So I'll start with the pinky on. You can play. You can play the game. You can act out. I think it's act out the part. Though you know it wasn't written for you. Something like that. But it's like, though you know it wasn't written for you. No, it wasn't written for you. No, it wasn't. Lots of two. No, it wasn't written. No, it wasn't written for you. That's what he does, is more of a flourish. He goes back to the one. It's like, wasn't written. So these little nuances I'm going to pick up later, but it's like 3 2 1. So it's like, it starts with the third, which is where he starts a lot of the parts, and then it's tonic ascend by a second. I don't know if I guess it might be a major. Yeah, it's a major second. So yeah, that's a lot of the major second. In that part of the verse, and then and then I noticed that let me do this part here where you're basically, it's just you got this B minor shape that's a whole step up. So this is going to be your not a B, but actually in this case it's a D minor. So it's one, just strumming through the chord with little arpeggio here. And that's back to it's not exactly back to one of our shapes, because it's like, it's kind of another shape. It's like based on, if this is, it's like basically a G, because it's like, but it's based on that conceptually. And it doesn't sound like he'd really probably be using the I guess that might be the fifth. Once again, not using the fifth, kind of like a suspended second or whatever. No, it's suspended fourth. Somehow, I don't even know if he's using, this must be back to the tonic. He might be using like the seventh at that point in time, if I had to guess. But he's not playing that whole chord anyway. I'm just wondering how it actually would fit if I had to use more notes of the chord that he's playing. He's playing just simply, what do you call it, a dyad, dy D-I-A-D, D-Y-I-A-D. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Or I'm not sure how to spell it. Sorry. But anyway, so like he's got, so basically you're doing this arpeggio, D minor, D minor, change the root, drop the root to a 6. And then this would be like just some sort of G, like we established. Even though he omits the second string, it's like your E string, your D string, G string, and B, and you've got this pressed down. This would be a relatively it's a G and a C sharp, but like here it's a sharp and a D sharp. Anyway, one thing, one thing, something like that. He does something. One thing can be. I don't think that part's yet, but it comes up in a moment here. It's kind of awkward to me. It does stuff like that. Lots of use of dyads, and I've got to look at the intervals to find out what they are, or why he's doing them. And then the chorus is so we're doing like a E, this. Well, this would be a whole step up because it's got the capo, but it's basically like, if it's actually interesting because it's like, this seems like it might be something like, if here's an A major 7th, it's got it's raising the major third to a 4th in the 7th chord. So it's like he's playing both the 7th and the 4th, and then he's changing the roots to, instead of the A, he's using the neighboring note, E versus A. What would that be? What's the exchange on that? I don't know. I can't even think the interval right now. It's so. I just think of these two strings as roots. Like the first two strings as roots here. So I can't even think about how they're related at the moment. But anyway, like if you start with an A, then go to an E, A E A E, then it's like A E A E. This would be like your. If this is a 5th, then could that be a 4th? Yeah, that's a 4th. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll just stop there because I've now got an ADD, fog.